Children's books play a vital role in shaping young minds, fostering empathy, creativity and critical thinking skills that last forever. Reading to your child regularly exposes them to new vocabulary, sentence structures and storytelling techniques, laying the foundation for strong language and literacy skills. However, reading together strengthens the bond between you and your child, creating a sense of security and nurturing a lifelong appreciation for the joy of reading. So if you long for such a bond with a child, then look no further than Hani du Toit's new captivating children's book, Return of the Songbirds. This poignant tale explores humanity's impact on nature and inspires young readers to champion change. And joining us is the author, Hani du Toit, and she joins us now via video link. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome, Hani.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me.
Now, what sparked the idea for Return of the Songbirds, and how did you develop the narrative?
So I actually was struck by a presentation I attended early this year, which spoke about the interconnectedness of humans and nature, not just our connectedness, but our oneness. And I thought this was something I really believed, but why is it that we don't? The narrative of man versus nature is so much more dominant in our society. And I felt that it was important to be able to pick up this narrative and push for it, especially in the times we're living in today, where we do experience being very disconnected, not only from nature, but also from each other.
And I see your book also tackles complex issues like ecological imbalance and displacement. So how do you make these themes more accessible to young readers?
Well, the book really tells the true story of what happened in Yellowstone Park in the United States, before it was the United States. And that is the destruction and devastation of Yellowstone because of the killing of the wolf, the grey wolves in particular, and the trophic cascade that happened within the environment with the destruction of an apex predator. And so really the book speaks to one action that can seem like a small or even a necessary action when we live in fear. Human beings tend to resort to all kinds of violent reactions when we are fear-driven. And for us to consider the ripple effects of that, because the entire landscape, the entire ecosystem is devastated. Animals are displaced and in vast numbers. In fact, the destruction of the wolves can be traced back to 2 million wolves being in the Americas when the European settlers first arrived. And within 150 years, there were absolutely no grey wolves left. So the destruction of being driven by maybe greed and fear and not understanding our interdependence and our interconnectedness is a message that I want to drive home, not just for children. I think adults need to be considering these messages and these lessons that are in nature.
Absolutely, absolutely. And do you want to talk about the significance of great-grandmother Songbird's character and her role in conveying the very same interconnectedness of life that you just alluded to earlier?
Yes, I think that she represents our disconnection from oral history, and that oral history needs to be kept alive. And we can do that in the simplest forms by connecting more meaningfully within our families. I think that we don't have the same regard for our elders that we used to, and they are the carriers of knowledge across generations. And so I think that I'd love to see this book inspire young people and to engage in intergenerational conversations. And encourage our elders to be forthcoming in sharing what they've lived through. I think generational trauma is perpetuated by us not talking about it. And sometimes we need to talk about what we've suffered. And in this country in particular, we have suffered displacement. People are still displaced. People are still in the impact of the history. And we cannot negate that history to create a future that's truly hopeful and meaningful. We need to engage the past and we need to integrate it into our now to navigate a way forward that is empowering, that is inclusive, that is fair to the environment and to each other.
And how did your experience as an inclusion specialist influence your approach to storytelling?
Very much so. I love sharing with children the kinds of things that I'm confronted by when I work with adults. I am quite clear that many of the things that adults are struggling with in corporations are the kind of skills they did not learn at school and the kinds of conversations they did not have at home. We don't often learn to speak about big emotions or to talk about difficult things.
Yes.
And global politics at the moment is a difficult thing that people are struggling to talk about. And so they rather don't talk about it. This book encourages people to start saying, well, what are the conversations we can have with courage and with care and with compassion? What are the conversations we can have about what's happening in the world? At the very back of the book, I offer some reflective questions for children and whoever's reading to them, because little ones are the most quick to absorb and take in and reflect on big questions. And often they're more courageous than we are. And so the questions at the back support parents and caregivers, teachers, to engage those conversations on questions like homelessness, loss of homeland, questions of belonging, questions of empathy. How do we care for the people around us that we see suffering, that we see are maybe not as privileged as we are? How do we engage them? What could we learn from them? What are the life experiences that they've had that could teach us something about ourselves? So definitely being an inclusion specialist has contributed vastly to the kinds of things that I want to encourage children to think about and to have conversations about.
I mean, I'm just looking at the illustrations in the background by Nathi Ngubane. They're quite striking. They're quite reflective. Can you walk us through the collaborative process between yourself and Nathi Ngubane?
So Nathi Ngubane was a key player in this project, in that I wanted the illustrations to reflect the parallels that I see between the struggles in the world today, not just the natural environment, but particularly the displacement of Palestinian, Lebanese people, what's happening in Sudan and in Congo. And so we brought in that symbolism in the coloring of the birds. And Nathi Ngubane he calls himself an Ubuntunist. He's a human rights cartoonist. And so his mission is very much about amplifying the kind of message that this book holds. And so it was beautiful to work with somebody who understood and shared that commitment and was willing to put in the necessary to bring the visuals to life and drive home in very subtle but deliberate ways those parallels.
All right. Hani, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us, and continue inspiring young minds as they take on this literary journey.
Thank you so much. I'd love to encourage people.
All right. Many thanks to Hani du Toit for sharing the inspiration behind Return of the Songbirds. Now, the book is sure to inspire a new generation of conscious leaders. So do not miss Hani's upcoming events in Cape Town at the Castle of Good Hope, and as well as here in Johannesburg. And Return of the Songbirds is available right now. Let's now take a quick break. We'll be back shortly.